Welcome, Paul. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call for the adoption of the agenda. Motion to adopt. Okay. Seconder? So move. All right. Meeting on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening for the presentations on the reports which are on the agenda this evening. My name is Colleen Brownlee. I'm the Vice Chair of the Advisory Planning Committee. And for those of you who have not been here before, we are a group of volunteers who form an advisory commission. We are not a decision-making group, but the discussions and the information that we receive from you who are applying for various, making applications this evening, and discussions from our committee around the table. Based on that, we make a recommendation. We make a recommendation to council for their consideration, but once again, we do not make any decisions. You will have an opportunity to speak to your item, which is on the agenda. We will hear, first of all, from staff members who will address the item that has been presented, and then we will ask those people who wish to make further comments and further explanations about their request to the Commission, and then the Commission will deliberate the information and ask questions accordingly. First item we have on the agenda, after which I've just called the meeting to order, will be the selection of the Commission Chair. Our previous Chair has left the Commission for other commitments that he has stepped into, and as Vice Chair, I am not interested in becoming the Chair. However, we're going to ask for nominations at this point in time, and I would start the nomination process by nominating Jeffrey Simpson as Chair of the Commission. Do I have a seconder? Okay, all right. I would ask for, are there any further nominations? Second time. Third time, are there any further nominations? All right, hearing none, I will move that nominations close. And congratulations, Mr. Simpson, you are the new Chair, and I am going to change chairs with you.
Thank you very much, fellow commissioners. I'm thanking you. Dorothy, thank you for the nomination. Appreciate that very much. So have you moved already for the adoption of the agenda? I missed that. It has been adopted. Great. So the fourth order of business then is to review and receive a motion to adopt not one set of minutes, but two. First one being item 4.1 on the agenda, the meeting of the APC that was conducted January 9th, 2019. Can I have a motion to adopt? Dorothy, seconder. Paula, discussion? Any corrections? All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried unanimously. The next set of minutes are the APC meeting of February 13th, 2019. Can I have a motion to adopt? Okay. Seconder? Any discussion? Any corrections? All in favor? Carried unanimously. There being no old business, we'll move right into new business. The first item under new business is report 6.1, Development Variance Permit Application DVP 19002. Can I turn it over to staff?
Thank you. The owner is requesting a relaxation of a side yard setback. This is to section 5.606 of the Colwood Land Use Bylaw. The setback requirement is 3 meters, and they're looking to have it set at 2 meters as opposed to 3. This is to accommodate a 49.9 meter squared addition onto the house, and as the request meets the applicable design guidelines in section 26 of the OCP, staff are in support of the variance.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant here, or someone representing the applicant?
I am the applicant. My name is Miroslav Paprotny. I'm supposed to be supported by my kids, but unfortunately they decided to do homework. So I'm on my own. So we've been living on Lindlark Place for over 15 years, and at that time, basically the house was sufficient for us, but our kids, we have two daughters, they grew, and right now they are teenagers, and basically we have more bigger special needs. Also,
Pardon me. Can you lift that mic closer to your voice? Because
That's better?
some of us can't hear. That's a lot better. Thank you very
should I
much.
start again? I've got like
think we're
pretty
good.
much 1 hour of text prepared here. Kidding. So again, my name is Miroslav Paprotny, and I represent my family of four, my wife and two kids. My kids are teenagers, and we reached to the point where we need more space in our house. And we like this neighborhood. We've been living for over 15 years. And also I'm an architect, so I am managing director for Zeiler Architecture in Victoria, but also I do work from home, especially that we have some clients on West Shore. One of the projects I worked on in the past was Pacific Landing. So what we're proposing to do is to a two-story addition that is under 50 square meters. And when it comes to the floor area ratio and site coverage is within the allowed limits. The only one aspect that we couldn't go around was the setbacks, and we asking here for a reduction by 1 meter of the existing setbacks. So in the addition, we are proposing to accommodate on the second floor bedroom is an expansion of the existing bedroom, so there is no addition of rooms. It's basically conversion of what is currently a nursery room into a closet, and the addition will accommodate a second floor bedroom. And on main floor, we are planning to accommodate home office that I will be using when I have meetings in West Shore or Up Island, so that will allow me to avoid commuting downtown Victoria. So in order to accommodate that, we look into different options, and we came into three aspects that we needed to consider. One was the existing septic field that we needed to place the addition place the addition so it's properly set back from the septic field in order not to damage it. The second one, but I think is the most important, was to basically provide a very small visual impact to the neighbors, especially the one that is co-owning the unit with us. So when we look into that, and we wanted that when they are in the garden, they do not see the addition. So that was the second aspect. And the third one was to accommodate a reasonable size office on the main floor. If we were limited on, we placed it within the setbacks, it would allow us to place something that is very narrow and not very useful for an office when you have to lay it out or spread drawings and keep them open for an extensive period of time. So during the process, we reached to our neighbors. We contacted 90 neighbors, 90% of them on Lindlark Place, and 3 houses on Sug Road. Out of 19 letters that we provided, actually my wife spoke to each of the neighbors, and 16 of them provided full support for that, for our plans, and 3 of them did not return any comments. And anyway, I would like to thank you for considering this application, and I hope it will be approved. And I also want to thank you, Richard, for providing support during the process and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there members from the general public that would like to speak to this development permit variance? If so, could you approach the podium, speak clearly into the microphone, and start by offering us your name and address, please?
Hello, my name is Joe Ronick. I live at 3130 Lindlark. I have to excuse me, my hearing's a little off. I didn't hear a word Mirov said. But I would just like to make a comment. I don't know what your neighborhoods are like, but ours is a lovely little neighborhood. It's a cul-de-sac. We watched his family grow up from one, I don't even think she was born yet, to 3 lovely young ladies. Their family is just a lovely part of our neighborhood. I noticed in here where he mentioned he was looking for adequate housing, but the current costs are just prohibitive. I understand that. And what he's shown us as neighbors is you won't even see the place from the street, and what you will, it'll just be fantastic. And like I say, for anything that would get to keep him and his family in our neighborhood would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public that wants to speak to this particular case? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the commission then, please. Any questions of the applicant? We can bring the applicant back up if need be, or what are your thoughts and wishes? Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the applicant, just on Appendix 5 here, you've got a picture of existing tree, and that also shows up on Appendix, well, it's on two different sheets of Appendix 5. Is that tree going to remain in place? Okay. And then just through the chair to staff, this is more just a question of procedure and so forth. At some point, does this get shown to fire services too, for them to have an opinion on it or not?
So they've already looked at it for the opinion. We do the referrals internally before bringing it to the commission.
Okay, so
No
they didn't have
concerns.
any concerns. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Members of the committee? Some of the things that were relevant to me is that this duplex was constructed before the city of Colwood was incorporated. And so by de facto, it's become a non-conforming use because some of the guidelines or standards are less than what the city subsequently adopted. But what was relevant to me when I conducted my review of this is that this addition does not violate any other ordinance within the bylaw, most notably the FAR, the floor area ratio. I believe the floor area ratio is 0.4 and you're 0.38. The other thing that impressed me was the support you've been able to garner from neighbors. That means a whole lot. And then lastly, that this alteration does not impose or exacerbate any other non-compliance items within the bylaw. So those three litmus tests were germane to me. The whole purpose, folks, of us gathering and huddling once a month is to offer up recommendations to council. And so I think in order for us to really be as relevant as we're going to want to be to council, it would be great if we could add comments to applications like this so that we afford members of council some perspective when they go to adjudicate the merits of this when it ends up on a council agenda. So what I'd like to see is some open discussion rather than just people voting for or against, because voting for or against really doesn't equip council with the tools to render a decision that they need to make subsequent to our meeting. Having said that, any further discussion amongst members of this commission? Yes.
Yeah, I just have two small comments. One, I felt the scale of this was appropriate. And Jeffrey, you mentioned that it met most of the zoning criteria, just the setback. However, I did feel that the information provided was a little bit lacking in contextual information, and this kind of an application would presumably have impacts on adjacent properties. We've seen a few of those before. They're much more helpful if they show adjacent land uses, adjacent buildings, so that we can get an understanding of how adjacent property owners might be impacted. I can judge from the layout of the adjacent lot that it's a panhandle and there's a driveway going up that side of the adjacent lot. I haven't seen an air photo. I didn't take the time to look at an air photo of it, but 3124A, I guess it is. Presumably that would have a driveway going up that side. So I would imagine that the impacts to the adjacent lot are going to be negligible, but certainly with this type of application, I just felt that a little bit more information on adjacent lots would be helpful.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. On page 21, I guess, of this report, you've got a series of recommendations that have been laid out by the planning department to either support the relaxation of this north side yard lot by that 1 meter from 3 meters to 2, subject to the qualification that is described in the recital which follows. So if you flip up to section 5, which lists the options, we can either recommend to council that this be authorized for issuance, or we can recommend that it be deferred for further information, or we can recommend to council that the application be denied. Could I receive a motion from a member here? Sure. Colleen?
I'd like to move that to recommend to council that DVP-19-002 be authorized for issuance, subject to the conditions as laid out in the recommendation before us.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Colleen. Yeah. Okay. Hello, seconder. Discussion? Ready for the vote? All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried unanimously. Congratulations, sir. We will now move on to agenda item 6.2, a report which is entitled Development Variance Permit Application DVP 19-003. I'll turn it over to staff, please.
Thank you, and through the chair, good evening, and thank you. DeHogue and Caruf Architects, representing the Yellow Ridge Construction, has made an application for development variance permit at 342 Whale Road to vary the number of parking stalls required for a 124-unit multifamily rental apartment building. The applicant has submitted a parking study from Watt Consulting that supports a parking ratio of approximately 1-to-1, based on the real demand of other affordable housing developments located primarily within the West Shore. Staff supports the application based on the rationale of the parking study, as well as provisions of bicycle parking and storage on site, the close proximity of services, amenities and shopping to meet the daily needs of the residents within foot traffic distance, excellent access to public transit, and adjacent access to the Galloping Goose commuter trail. The applicant is requesting the following variance: reducing the minimum allowable number of off-street parking stalls for apartment dwelling use pursuant to section 6.11.09 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 1.3 parking stalls per dwelling unit to 1.0 parking stalls per dwelling unit, subject to substantial compliance with the architectural drawings that are included in your package. The applicant is also in attendance tonight, and they have a presentation they would like to make to support their application for the proposed variance. Your screen, you'll note, is not working. Apologies for that. We worked very diligently to get it up, but you should have an information package with you, and this screen to the audience is working. Please.
Hi, Mr. Chair, I would ask if I could maybe make the presentation from the laptop so I can change the slides and just talk loud.
By all means.
Okay, thanks. The site
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there members of the general public that wish to speak to this development variance permit application? Really? That's surprising. This is a big deal. Hearing none, I'll turn it over to commission members. Questions of the applicant, or yes, Colleen?
Through the chair to the applicant. I have a question about parking, obviously. You have space for 101, is that what you're looking at? 126. 126, sorry, there was 101 in there. And how many do you have any anticipation as to how many of those 126 parking stalls might be used?
Yeah, I think the parking study said that it was combined demand of 101.
I think that's where I got the 101 from.
So that's based on similar projects in the greater region, but also looking at some on the West Shore specifically. So to our knowledge, that's what we would estimate.
Okay, so within those 126 parking spots, are they all sized for regular sized cars, or are there some small car designations?
We worked with planning on potentially introducing small cars, and there was no real change, so we left them all full size.
All right, and what about facility for electric cars?
We have the flexibility to do that because it's the same size shape. So what we're finding on all our projects is there will be some percentage of electric cars, and it increases with every few years that goes by. So
Right.
I would expect to see quite a few.
Okay. I think having this facility there is really positive and a real good move for Colwood. My concern or my question would be, what consideration has been given for parking for visitors, but also in that particular area? I know that parking is a challenge, whether it's people who are going to the restaurant or whether it's people who are going to, what was the Pacific Center for Family Resources, etc. And it's always a concern. Is that something that in your planning you have taken into consideration regarding on-street parking? Because there is limited on-street parking there.
Yeah, I know we've been working with staff on whether or not on-street parking is something that should be or should not be part of the project. And to be honest, the project could go either way, and it's something that we see on every project where an existing condition in a neighborhood is going to be there no matter whether the project happens or not. So the parking in this project is for the residents,
Right.
for the visitors. As to whether or not some additional street parking should be considered as part of the offsite improvements, we're definitely open to that. But that's not really, wasn't really the scope of the parking study, and almost isn't really the scope of what we're asking for with this project.
Yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to see if that is a consideration, you know. Yeah, yeah. And particularly during the construction phase and also construction that's now ongoing on that particular road, on Whale Road. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair to the applicant. Were the other properties adjacent and around approached with this application, and did they provide you any feedback to it? We do have the one letter, but I was wondering if there was others that were approached in that.
Please, Brent. Yeah.
Through the chair, we did provide mailouts for a 75-meter radius for this meeting tonight. And so, yes, they have been approached, and you're correct. We have received one letter in so far.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, just a quick question for staff. What stage in the process is this project? This is obviously a development variance permit. Is there rezoning required?
Through the chair, the land is already zoned, and it was zoned for a far higher use than before. It was a 19-story building. So when you contemplate the parking, this is a 6-story use with 124 compared to a 19-story with X number of units. So this land will be subject to minor zoning amendments, which we understand as we work through the project details with the applicant, but they won't be grossly affecting the zone in play right now.
Thanks very much.
Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the applicant. If you had to stick with the current bylaw requirement for parking, would that necessitate having to build another floor of underground parking?
I don't think it would. I think that there's probably space in the footprint of the parkade to expand it. But part of this is having a study about parking, but also generally trying to put in the right amount of parking for the project. So based on our experience with other affordable housing projects and based on the study, we do feel that this is the right amount to try and build. So, but we do acknowledge that it could be provided probably by expanding laterally instead of having to add another floor.
And presumably that would add cost to the project generally.
Yes.
This is a fairly unique situation. I recognize that when you're looking at affordable housing, and especially in this particular location where there are a lot of amenities close by, it does seem reasonable to assume that a resident of this property could walk or ride to a lot of amenities. But the fact also remains that employment opportunities in the West Shore are still somewhat lacking, and we're getting there, but we're not there yet. So, and we don't have transit on Whale Road yet. Hopefully sometime soon. So, you know, there are going to be people that have to commute, and I share my colleague's concern, Colleen's concern with visitor parking. I know that you've got, is it 12 spots that are set aside for visitor parking? And I think I would be much more hesitant to support this request if there were, certainly if there were any commercial. I would be much more hesitant to support this request, but I think that given the fact that it's purely residential, that it's in a location that has so many amenities within close means by other than single vehicle transport, and also that it doesn't abut against another side road that would be impacted. I've certainly seen in situations even here in Colwood, and there's a small development across from Sangster School that comes to mind, where apartments were put in, a parking variance was granted, and there were pullouts on the road that were put in, and ostensibly they were to replace pullouts for school pickup, and I'm going sideways here a little bit on you, I apologize for that. And they were there for school pickup, but now they're just being used all the time by apartment users. So I have some sensitivity to that, but I think that in this particular instance, given that you don't have that, I mean, there's going to be a temporary, or there's going to be a parking pullout on Whale Road, but I really don't see your building have a big impact on that. I'm interested to know that none of the other buildings nearby we're worried about overflow onto their streets, but apparently that seems to be the case. So yeah, I just wanted to make sort of a point about the fact that there is a very unique aspect of your application, given the use of the property, given the fact that there's no commercial, given the fact that you don't have any other smaller road that could be immediately impacted by people from the building leaking out, so to speak, with vehicles. So I think it's a very unique situation there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eden. Any other comments from commission members? I've got a couple of questions of the applicant, if I could, but wanted to be respectful of other comments that might be on the floor here. So if you can indulge me, I've got several comments that I'd like to run past you. In no particular order, I got 2.5 pages into this report before I saw the word affordable as a tagline to affordable housing. To me, the fact that this is, by interpretation, an affordable housing application for a relaxation in parking is ever so pivotal. This is not purpose-built market housing. This is affordable housing. I say pivotal because the traffic study benchmarks affordable housing projects, not regular purpose-built market housing. So I was just surprised that I got to 2.5 pages before I realized that it is indeed affordable housing. When I look at the Watt report, which I've studied in detail, I'm satisfied that 126 is probably a respectable number opposite the projections that have been qualified in other West Shore projects. I did notice that there was a minor error on page 46 in that at the very top it refers to 126 parking spaces. So I didn't know at first whether it's 126 spaces or 124, but it is 124 because there are 124 suites. Is that correct?
I thought it was 126. You may be right. So there is 124 suites. Is it 126?
So it's 124 parking spaces because it's one parking space per dwelling unit.
1.009.
Oh, okay. So there are 126 parking spaces for 124 units. Okay.
Respectively, Chair, that subtlety is in there slightly. It's in that last section on page 47, the staff analysis. This proposal includes 126 parking stalls exceeding the predicted demand on one-to-one. It's so thin, though, it's a
Very good.
a
I
point.
got it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So there is reference in this report to the fact that, in fact, it's the very last staff comment on page 47 under subsection B. It talks about the development is for the purposes of providing affordable rental housing as defined by BC Housing. So I went out onto BC Housing's website today and I looked for the definition of affordable housing, and I got 1,843 hits. Needless to say, I didn't navigate through all 1,843 hits to try to find out what the definition is. My understanding is the definition of affordable housing per BC Housing, although correct me if I'm wrong, is that a tenant shouldn't be tasked to pay any more than 30% of their gross income on housing, and housing is the aggregate of rent and utilities. Is that correct? Does anybody know? You which? I tried to look for it as well. Did you?
You know, I wish I had that answer to answer that so cleanly as that question was raised. And this is a mix of 3 different affordability matrices, from what I understand in the building, that could be explained a little bit further. But there is different components to different aspects of this particular development. Some with a lower, higher ratio of affordability or support, blending to almost zero.
Okay, so a related question then is, how does the city of Colwood gain comfort that forever and a day this will be an affordable housing project, regulated to that standard of meeting the affordable housing definition of BC Housing?
There is no concrete way to actually guarantee it for life. We can register covenants, they can change their use within the building, and it's all about enforceability.
219 covenant?
A 219 takes policing. Quite literally somebody checking up on it. The housing matrix that they've proposed means that they have to report as a societal group as to how they're meeting their objectives. So there is, eventually there may be a possibility.
Okay. Sorry, you had your hand up. Were you going to ask a question? Oh. Is your client entering into an operating agreement with BC Housing? Yes. That operating agreement most assuredly then will require the perpetuity of affordable housing to the definition of what is affordable. Very likely. Yeah. Okay.
The funding is coming through BC Housing, and so there's all part of a complex deal that's beyond my pay grade, but as part of that, there may likely be some needs that is locked in.
Okay. Yet another question, again, if you can indulge me. is egress and ingress, access to and from the parking structure to Whale Road. I'm raising it because it's related to parking. I'm taking some license there, but what I'm concerned about is whether there's any conflict with neighboring curb cuts. On the other side of Whale Road, there's a recently completed multifamily housing project. So has engineering looked at the turning movements into and out of this parking structure, and have they got themselves satisfied that there's no conflict with other neighboring properties?
Yes, the frontage works has been partially designed. Part of that will be part of the demonstrating the turning movements, but there's no intention to take large radius vehicles into the building. Moving would be done from a staging platform on Whale Road. Emergency services would be done from the staging area of Whale Road. These are for the residences which will have to meet the minimum height as per the building code.
Okay, thank you. I think that is all that I had by way of questions. You'll be relieved to know. A very fine-looking project, so architecturally, I think you've really killed it with this one. Like to see more projects of this nature. Any other questions then before we call for the vote? Yes.
Through the chair, you brought up a good point. So where would individuals access the parking lot? Where will you go into the building, into the parking area? Off of which road?
In your vehicle, you would come in off Whale Road, so there's one curb cut, and that would be a little bit east of center on the site, because that's the lower side, and that will give you fairly direct access into the parking lot.
So it'll be entrance and exit the same way? So if you came off onto Whale Road, it would be a right turn only?
Through the chair, some of these questions aren't answered yet, quite frankly. The frontage drawings have not been submitted for approval at this time. We are fully expecting that this project will need, because all the works that are in front of it are considered temporary. So the curbing that's there right now is temporary. These folks will be creating it. We fully expect some geometrics to the laning to be affected on Whale Road. I personally think that the island will be modified in slight proximity, as well as we've got another project that will be building a full signalized intersection at Wilford, and that will affect the geometrics for how this site gets in and out. If in the future it's at the election of the Director of Engineering, if they need to control access points, they could elect at any point, if it became a conflict, to control that, and then a right-in, right-out movement would easily accommodate because of the Goldstream U-turn potential.
Right, okay. One further question, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Of course.
I'm glad to hear that that's happening. So when that's happening, will there be, I can't remember, is there bicycle lane on Whale Road now? And how, if there were, is it on both sides? Well, it has to be on both sides.
Yeah, through the
So
chair,
that
there's
will
a
be
bike.
taken into consideration when you're looking at entering into and exiting the parking area.
That's right. These two projects, the project that I spoke about, designing the intersection, is at an earlier stage than these folks.
Okay.
And so there is plans to actually shift that crossing for the Galloping Goose to make it a little bit more in alignment. Right now you have to cross the road twice. You will have to again, but at least you'll cross it once in the appropriate direction with that signalized intersection. I think that those details will more likely be realized with the intersection works than with this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Eden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one more question through the chair to staff. Are there any parking restrictions on Wilford Road at present?
Great question. As we've talked about the potential for spillover, Wilford Road has no parking restrictions at present. It's been designed as an industrial width roadway. It has parking allowances on both curb edges. That doesn't mean we would wish to see all of the parking spill over onto Will, because there will be other Wilford, because there will be other developments. But there is ability without parking restrictions to have curb edge parking on Wilford.
Okay, thank you.
Any further deliberation amongst the APC?
I just wanted to add a little compliment, actually. I really appreciate the access into the bike room. I think that's a good move. It's an important move. If we're going to be reducing parking requirements and adding a significant sized storage facility for bikes, making those easy to get into and out of is in my view really important. So congratulations on that.
Okay. Can I ask for a motion, please, from the APC? Mr. Eden? Including the subject provision. Okay, everybody knows what Mr. Eden's referring to. Recommendation number 5, which would include A, B, and double A's and 2 A's and 1 B. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the vote? All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried unanimously. Congratulations. Well, moving right along. Item 7, referrals. None have been brought to my attention, so I think we can dispense with that agenda item. And so goes it with delegations. So can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Seconder? Mr. DeGrief, all in favor? Contrary minded, carried. Good evening, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Not at all. No. No.